Stampers, Lorraine Sish here from stampwithlorraine.com. I'm here today to bring you a very simple, easy card that will use a little bit of DSP, a little bit of stamping, but you start with just a basic, very clean and simple layout, and then you can embellish away and do as much or as little as you want. Clean and simple cards are very trendy now, and quite easy to make as well. You know, you just have to be careful not to overdo it with your embellishments if you want that clean, simple look. But as usual, I will show you a lot of variations to what you can do with this simple layout, and can even bump it up a little bit if you want something a little bit more colorful or with a little extra flair. So please stay tuned to the very end so you don't miss a single one. I show lots of different cards, and I would love it if you gave me a thumbs up down below if you like this video, and also stop by my blog, stampwithlorraine.com. You can see lots more information on different projects and different events that I'm hosting. You can even sign up for my newsletter there. Stay in touch. I send you out a newsletter every week with some Stampin' Up! News and some tips and tricks and some tutorials for my customers and just for my subscribers to my newsletter. So I hope you join in on that fun, and I really do appreciate your support. If you don't have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be yours. Go to my website and request a catalog, reach out to me, say hello, and you can go directly to my online store, Lorraine Sish at stampinup.net, if you want to order straight from my website. So otherwise, be in touch. I'd love to help you out. Okay, so here we go with this clean and simple card. White, a lot of white space, and simple kind of band look across a couple different layers. Add some die cuts or some stamps, and you've got a gorgeous card. Okay, let's turn the camera around and get started. We're starting with a regular card base, 8.5 by 5.5. Scored at 4 1/4. Then we need another little piece of white that is 3 by 4 1/4. And then you need a couple of strips of your designer series paper. We often call it DSP. So if I call it DSP, you'll know I'm talking about the designer series paper. That's what the Stampin' Up! Calls their patterned paper. Sometimes I use DSP on my videos and people say, what's DSP? I'm so used to just saying it. So, designer series paper. Now, we're going to have 2 strips that are 2 inches each. So, if you have a 12 by 12, just cut right down the side at 2 inches. And then the lengths, you can see, are quite similar. I have one at 4 inches and one at 4 1/4. Okay, so both 2 inches wide, one at 4, one at 4 1/4. The 4-inch one can be longer. Don't sweat over it. It could be 4 also. Just go with it. We're going to actually fold this over part of the piece, so it doesn't matter if you have an extra in the back here. It doesn't have to be so precise. All right, what's kind of fun about this card is there aren't any crazy measurements. So that's why it looks clean and simple, and it also is easy to do. Nice and simple, easy to do. So now, like I said, we're going to do this card in a vertical orientation. So if you have designer series paper that has a definite direction, then consider that, because we're going to put a band of the designer series paper across here. So you'll want that oriented properly. So keep that in mind. And we're going to wrap this other piece around the smaller piece. So don't glue anything yet, because I'm going to show you my trick on how to get this all nice and even. Now we're going to want it to go right in the middle of the card. And we're also going to want to stamp first, because you know how that goes. If you glue other things down and then you try to stamp and it gets messed up, now you've wasted your paper, your designer series paper, whatever else you've adhered to there. So we're just going to use this as a guide before we stamp. So this is what I'm going to do. This eventually is going to go on top of here, and we are going to have both of those little bands sort of lining up. Okay, and then this top part is going to be popped up with dimensional dots. So to give it a little dimension, then we're going to decorate it even more. I'm going to hold it this way. I love the top of the grid paper on the mats here. The left and the bottom has your regular ruler. The top and the right side have a ruler that starts at 0 in the middle and works the way out. So you're able to use this to center things pretty easily. So because this is 4 1/4, when I want to center it, I'm going to go at 2 1/8. So it's just little halfway through that little square on the grid line. And then this is easy since it's 2 inches. I will just be centering it obviously 1 on 1 on each side. Now to make this a little easier to fold around, to wrap around, I've taken my scoring tool and I made a little score on the 1/2 inch. Okay, don't go too hard through your designer series paper. It is thinner than cardstock, so when you're scoring, just lightly go across and make a score. I did just one side first, and then I like to wrap it around the other side later. So I'm going to measure at the 1 inch line, see where my paper is going to go. I'm wrapping it around the edge, and I'm measuring 1 and 1 on each side. All right, and then I'm going to flip it over. And if you like, you can take your bone folder and make a little bit of a scoring line to start your fold and then wrap that around. Now I'm not gluing it down yet because like I said, I want to do my sentiment first because I sometimes get things crooked just like everybody else, or you get a smudge, and if I do, I can always just flip this over and or do something else with it, so it's not a big deal. I'm just holding that in place because it's wrapped around pretty tightly. It's going to be fairly easy. I'm going to take my Memento black ink and I'm going to take a very small sentiment because I want to keep this nice and clean and simple, something that's going to fit right down here. A couple of my favorites for that kind of sentiment is Art Gallery, because you have these very simple plain prints and you have a lot of different sentiments to go along with it. Another one that has some small ones is The Beauty of Friendship, Thinking of You, I Believe in You, Hello, Thank You. You know, something very plain and simple is the look I'm going for here. So I find lately I'm in a need for birthday cards, so I'm going to go with a happy birthday from the Art Gallery this time. I already have that on my block. This is one that I've actually cut in half. I was very nervous about doing it originally, but I actually cut the happy and the birthday because sometimes I didn't want something that long. I wanted happy on top and birthday down below. But with the photopolymer, you can do that really easily, and then you can just fit them back together very easily too. They just match right back up, and you can put them together on your work table and then pick them up with your block and they're right back where they were. So that's really nice. So now my DSP is in place. I'm going to stamp my sentiment. And okay, I often like to, on my grid paper, just practice, make sure my sentiment's straight. Okay, I'm seeing, okay, I have to bring down the right side just a little bit because maybe I went a little crooked on that. So I like to practice, like to make sure your stamp is inked up properly. Okay, that's better. Sometimes the first inking might not cover the stamp very well, so you need to kind of just, I would say prime it like. All right, I'm just going to stamp this here. You could stamp it in the center or a little off to the side. I chose off to the side. And then we are going to glue down the DSP. I'll turn it over, put some on the flap first. Now I know it's held in place. I can put some adhesive on the rest of it. If you're using liquid glue, be very careful with it. Very thin bead is all you need because it's going to flatten out and spread a little bit. Okay, and then I'll wrap it around. When I first saw this card or made this card, I didn't wrap it around. And then in looking at it, I saw white on the side here that I really didn't like. So I said, you know what? We're going to wrap it around. It's going to have a more finished look to it. So that's how I came upon that. Trial and error, right? Okay, now the next one, we're going to put this 2-inch strip on the card front. And we'll measure it the same way with the grid paper up on top. And this is going to go from 2 3/4 to 2 3/4. And then, obviously, 1 inch on each side over here. And then when we layer those two pieces, they'll be nice and even. This paper is from, like you could see, the Tea Boutique 6x6 Designer Series paper, or DSP. And this is the flip side of the teapots. I love the little polka dots. And today's tutorial not just features this little card design, but I want to also point out that just because this is the Tea Boutique, and here are some of the beautiful papers that come with that. You have teacups and teapots. The flip sides are more graphic or subtle prints. And but just because it's a tea themed pattern paper, you don't necessarily have to be using it with the stamps or the die cuts that come with this. So you can get more out of your paper if you kind of think out of the box or out of the Designer Series paper package, right? Okay, the one great thing about Stampin' Up is the bundles, but you don't always have to keep to that, obviously. Okay, so that's our basic card. We're going to put dimensionals on the back here, but first we're going to design this a little bit. Now, I love black and white with a little bit of color. Now, this has more than just a little bit of color, but I am going to keep with the rest just the black and white. And I'm going to take my black and white gingham ribbon. This is one of my favorites. I love this one. And I thought the gingham and the polka dots just kind of go so cute together, sort of a country look. You'll need about 11 inches, enough for you to tie a knot. I often like to keep my ribbon on the spool when I begin my knot. I find I have less waste that way. Or if I find, oops, I needed more, or I wanted to make a bow instead of a knot, then you have that option because it's not already pre-cut. I'm just tying a little knot because this doesn't have a lot of space here, so I didn't want to make it too big. See, now I can trim this part, and like I said, it's just right. But yeah, the black and white gingham ribbon, absolutely love it. All right, and look how cute we have so far. And then in keeping with the sort of that country theme, I'm going to put Daisy up here. I thought that would be really cute. Now, the ribbon moves around, so you have a couple of options of keeping your ribbon still. One that I like to do a lot is to use a glue dot. I take my pick tool. Okay, this is not the Stampin' Up one. This is just an extra one I keep handy on my desk. And you can slip a little glue dot right under that knot and it will hold it secure. You can also put a little bit of adhesive on the back, but because I'm putting dimensionals on the back, I'm just going to make sure my dimensionals catch part of that ribbon and help hold it in place. Now, don't want to skimp on this, especially the white cardstock is a little thinner than others. So if you are using white, I like to put 3 down each side and then 1 in the middle because I don't want the middle to sag. Another little thing I do with my dimensionals, they come in regular and mini. So I have them in my little holder. I write regular and mini so I can see them quickly. But then when it comes down to, I've used them all up, don't throw away the edges. I have another cello bag that I've marked edges, because now I know these I can custom cut to whatever size I need. I just keep all the edge pieces in there, and I'm able to grab that quickly, so I'm able to see what I need. And then the same thing with the black. Okay, the black comes in, you have a regular and a mini in each package, but I've separated them just because it's a little easier for me to find those. All right, so this is what we're going to have, and now I'm going to add a daisy. So obviously daisies weren't part of the Tea Boutique, but that's okay. So I'm going to take my medium daisy punch, and I'm going to punch out 2 daisies so I can make a double layer, have a fuller flower. And I'm going to take my sponge dauber. I've written the dedicated color I like to use for that right on here. And I have this is an old Stampin' Up box that I've put many of my sponge daubers in there, and that way I know exactly which color they are, and they're all just ready to choose when I want the color. I'm just going to take the sponge dauber and give a little tap of yellow to the middle. Going to glue these together. Offset them a little bit. Okay, and then you can take something small like a paintbrush or pencil works fine. You can kind of curl them up a little bit because, you know, in nature, flowers aren't perfectly flat. You can pull up some of the petals a little bit, make it look a little bit more realistic. And look how cute that's going to be. Now we need just a little bit of leaf, so I have the bow punch, and I'm going to stick my granny apple green in there to just get a little bit of greenery, and put a little stem behind there. Now I got a little bit on oh, I'm off the other camera. I got a little bit off the edge over here. 1 second. So I'm just going to cut that down right there. Okay, sometimes you catch the edge of the paper, so it's okay. I'm just going to freehand cut that. Ta-da! And nobody knows the difference except us, right? Now, if it's a little bit too long, actually it's not. I think that will look lovely. I'm going to put a little bit of glue down here and glue it to the back of my daisy. Just like that. Hold it for a second. Flip it over. And I'm going to put dimensionals on that too. Of course, one right in the middle. And I might take a little bit of the others and just stick it under that leaf, just so that leaf doesn't pop up and get pulled on something. So I'm going to try to cut a narrow piece from here and stick it right up there. That's what I mean, you have some options and some flexibility. I might put another little one right there. I have dedicated scissors that I use just for my sticky things like dimensional dots or sticky paper. Okay, that's kind of a big leaf there, so support that. All right, we'll stick the daisy right there, and that will help hold my ribbon down as well, won't it? Okay, well this one is just catching the top layer. So I'm going to move this. Well, it's not going to matter. It's just catching a little bit. That's all right. It's not going to do any harm. Okay, take these off. You get 300 dimensionals in the pack, plus you have the edges. They're really inexpensive item, so don't be afraid to use them. Well worth every penny. Okay, then we'll stick that right in the middle there. And you have a really clean and simple card right there. Right? So I just thought it was neat that this band continued, but just on a different layer. Well, that's what I really loved about that. And I like that it's wrapped around the side and the white edge doesn't show through. Okay, so that really clean and simple look. Now let me show you a couple other options I have here. I did one with the Pretty Prince paper and tied it with the, what's it called? Window pane check ribbon and the evening evergreen. And that's what the DSP is. Thinking of you. And then I'm cut a couple little sprigs, little die cuts from the Nature's Prince. Nature's Prince is the stamp set that coordinates with the Pretty Prince paper. And it has the Natural Prince dies. So I just took these little sprigs here, one in white, one in evergreen, and I will attach it onto here. Okay, for my next card, I'm going to use Rustic Harvest DSP, which is this beautiful fall prints with pumpkins and black and earth tones and crushed curry, mossy meadow, just really, really pretty fall leaves and squashes and some black and white graphic looks on the back. So it's very beautiful for fall. I'm going to use the crushed curry DSP with this pattern here, and we are going to wrap, remember, see I scored this here. We're going to wrap this around. I'm going to measure it up on top. So this is a quick little review. I'm going to do this one more time really quickly for you. Measure from 0 to 1 on each side and just kind of hold that in place so I know where to put my sentiment. I'll take my bone folder, make a little crease on the back so it's a little bit easier to fold that over. And I'm just going to hold that in place while I stamp my sentiment. We're going to use You Are Such a Blessing from the Hello Harvest stamp set. And I'm going to do that in Early Espresso. So that looks a little off. Did I move it? No, okay, I guess I'm good. Okay, now this sentiment is a little bigger, so I'm going to have a little bit more white space up on top. So I'm going to try to balance that out in another way. You want your card to have some balance to it. You don't want everything being one side or the other. Now my ink pad is quite juicy here. Let's just hope I get this straight and don't smudge. Ooh, not bad. Whew. Always a concern, right? Okay, so now that that's down, I can glue my paper. Let me just make sure it's 1 and 1, and we are good. Okay, so get my little bit of glue there, fold it over. Now that's in place, I can add my glue here. Now I should have my mat underneath. It's right here. Why not use it? One thing about liquid glue, you have a little wiggle room, so they say. You have time to readjust if something is not working perfectly. Okay, you are such a blessing. Yes, thank you all for watching. And please give me some feedback in the comments below. Tell me what you like, and that way I can tweak my tutorials to your needs as well. Okay, so we're going to do this one in the center as well. 2 3/4, and then the 1 and 1. One side of the ribbon, then the other. Make sure it's straight in the front. You wrap it around. Same thing over here. So it has a little more masculine look, or a more simple look than the ends hanging out. And of course you'll put your dimensionals all behind there. Dimensionals on the pumpkin, of course, too. And especially with your DSP, don't skimp on the dimensionals because the DSP is thinner than the cardstock and you don't want it tearing or sagging. So I will put extra on there. The other option is you can glue your DSP onto a piece of cardstock before fussy cutting. So that's one other option as well. I'm going to bring this down so the pumpkin is sitting here on the bottom of the that little band as if it's sitting on a shelf, not just kind of floating there. Kind of gives the illusion of it sitting on something. Okay, I like that. And then dimensionals on the back, of course. And then we'll finish it up with some embellishments on the front to take care of that other white space. Notice again, I'm catching the ribbon with my dimensional dots just for an additional secure hold. Okay, and that looks kind of nice, but I'm going to put a couple little embellishments up here, and the ones I felt matched the gold, the browns best are these brush metallic adhesive back dots. Now I could do gold. I could put them on here or up here, but I want to take balance off some of that white space up here. So I'm thinking maybe these, because they're a little bit closer to the browns. Okay, and I think I'll go with 3 of the smaller ones. So I have my take your pick tool. Going to pick them up right there, and I think I'll put just 3 across. Odd numbers are usually best when you're doing something like this. And there, so it kind of balances out so you don't have too much white space on top, yet it's something subtle and nice and clean. Okay, the exact same layout on all 3, except slightly different colors, different DSP, a punch, a stamp, a die cut, ribbon, and tied differently. So look at all the variety you can get. Now here's one more where I used Granny Apple Green and I used a bigger image across. So it can go either way. It can have something more delicate and small, something bigger to take make a bolder statement. So lots of options for you here. Look at all that we did today. So there's 6, and of course this last one here, 7. So let's see what you come up with. Go to my Facebook page and share some of your own creations. Okay, hope you enjoy the video. Thank you so much for watching.